Can you tell us about your efforts to support Senate Bill 2155?
Absolutely. We conducted a study internally at our credit union regarding the overall cost as it relates to education. And our credit union specifically, we had over $84,000 a year that we have with a regulatory burden due to that. In addition, we have a very aggressive member business lending program. We have about $154 million in member business loans, and about 15% of that portfolio is in 1 to 4 family, non-owner occupied lending. And this bill will now take that 15% and move it out of our MBL cap and allow us to deploy that capital to other borrowers. And I think what often gets lost when we talk about this MBL importance is when the recession hit in 2008, many banks exited commercial lending, but many credit unions stayed in it, in fact, increased their presence. And in fact, my credit union was one of those. And so some of these changes, like the MBL modification, 1 to 4 family, will allow us now and in the future to be able to provide capital when it's needed. Also, as it relates to Senate Bill 155, it's greater transparency as it relates to the budgetary process with NCUA. And if you look at the total cost of overhead at the FDIC pre-recession and NCUA pre-recession, and then you go post-recession, the FDIC, in fact, has closed offices, has reduced the costs when NCUA's budget continues to go up above inflation each year. And another differential is that credit unions pay 100% of the cost of the NCUA operating budget, whereas banks do not. And so because we're paying the costs, we should have some element of an oversight on how the funds are being spent. And then finally, I think requiring the Treasury Department to communicate the cybersecurity risks to financial institutions is enormously helpful. That is my biggest fear running a credit union. I feel that the cybersecurity, that when they can penetrate Chase and Bank of America, there's no way that we have the resources to keep our members' data safe. And so we need to have the Treasury to release where those risks are so we can, in fact, prevent a possible intrusion into our systems and getting access to our member data.
Okay.
I'll just add to a couple of Sean's comments. I wholeheartedly echo his thoughts with regards to cybersecurity. That's probably one of the things that keeps me up most, is just when I listen to my people in my IT department about all the things going on and just the risk that can be out there that you don't even know about. It's just, and like I say, that's probably the single biggest issue that keeps me up. And anything that the Treasury Department can do to dig into that and do an analysis of stuff, I think would be very beneficial. You know, a couple of other things as it relates to the regulatory burden. Our credit union spends on average $78 per member on regulatory burden. Now, we have about 63,000 members, so we spend a little over $4.5 million a year just in dealing with all the various compliance and regulatory items that are in front of us. And it's interesting how, I think it was Jim Nussel that talked yesterday and made the comment, is like, we don't want to do with all regulation. There's certain regulation that you need. I understand that, and I agree wholeheartedly with it. But the level that we have right now is just unbearable. And if you think about it, let's assume that what we have now, you only need 75% of it. So in my case, I spend $4.5 million a year. I could have over $1 million a year that I could give back to my members in forms of, better deposit rates, lower rates on vehicles, investment in information technology. Those are the things that I think are great opportunities, and if some of these things can come to pass where we can reduce some of that regulatory burden, that's what I'm looking for. One of the other things on 2155, as it deals with the elder abuse and some immunity, I'm sure Sean's the same as us. We have a lot of members that are elderly, and we see that on a regular basis where members will come in and they're being taken advantage of either by family members or by a scammer or someone like that. And those are things that we train our staff on to look for. And I think just that something at a national level where there'd be some immunity so that we can try and help prevent some of those things from occurring where their life savings is taken from them, I think that'd be beneficial as well.